Howdy, and welcome back to Celebrating Vintage Model Kits. Going to be looking at another Aurora kit today. This is the 1955 Aurora kit of the SBC-3 Helldiver. It's listed as being a quarter scale kit, which is 1/48 scale. In actuality, it scales out to 1/41 scale. The Helldiver itself was the last combat military biplane adopted by the U.S. Navy. It was, first conceived in 1931. The Navy issued a design spec 113 for a high-performance fighter with fixed undercarriage and two crew to be powered by either the Wright R-1510 or the Pratt & Whitney R-1535. 7 designs were submitted. 2 were built, the Douglas XF-D1 and the Vought XF-3U1. The Navy asked Curtiss to make a monoplane with retractable gear as kind of like a figuring out what could the next step be, and how much improvement could there be with that. So they developed a monoplane with a parasol wing, and it actually had folding wings, one of the first Navy aircraft with folding wings. This was called the XF-12C1. Curtiss's model number was 73. It was powered by the Wright 1510-92, which was a 2-row 14-cylinder engine with 625 horsepower. That engine was not a very reliable engine. Ultimately, it didn't go into production, and it was re-engined with a 775 horsepower R1670, and ultimately it received the R1820 with 700 horsepower, which was a single-row engine. That flew in July of 1933, and in September 34, the parasol wing failed, and it was ultimately rejected as a fighter. The Navy went back to the drawing board, decided that none of these aircraft were good, and then was looking for the aircraft to become a scout aircraft. And so it was rebuilt, a new one was made, and it was designated XS-4C1, and fitting into the scouting category. Again, it was engined with the 1820, and it was then designed to carry a 500-pound bomb, and a cradle was built onto it in order to swing the bomb clear of the propeller. Still considered a Model 73 by Curtiss, and then it became redesignated as XSBC-1 as the Navy came up with the Scout Bomber category, and it began flight testing on 14 June of 34, and it again had another wing failure. So Curtiss went back to the drawing board and did a major revision on the aircraft. Made it a biplane, revised the fuselage considerably, and also re-engined it again. So it was a staggered wing biplane with single interplane struts, and they eliminated the wing folding. It did have leading edge slots and full span flaps. It's all metal construction with fabric covering on the control surfaces and the wings. And this one was engined with the Wright 1510 again. At this point, it was putting out 700 horsepower. They put a three-bladed constant speed propeller on it, and it ultimately won the contract in April of 1935, even though its first flight did not occur until December of 1935. The 1510 again continued to be unreliable, and so it was replaced with the Pratt & Whitney 1535 of 700 horsepower, and a Navy production order came along after that. This was now designated Model 77 by Curtiss, and the Navy ordered 83 in August of 1936. Deliveries started in July of 37. And the production version ended up with a more powerful version of the 1535, 825 horsepower. And it had two 30 caliber machine guns, one in the nose and one for the rear observer gunner. And it could carry the 500-pound bomb again, or a 45-gallon drop tank. And then this was modified even further into the SBC-4, which had the 1820 engine installed, so it changed the nose profile. It was a single row engine, which was much wider, and so it had a little bit of a flatter nose, kind of almost like a kind of chin hanging down nose on the SBC-4. But that increased the horsepower to 950 horsepower. So they were able to put a little bit more armament on it. The nose gun was replaced by a 50 cal, and the bomb load was increased to 1,000 pounds. And the Navy ordered an additional 124 in January of 1938, and deliveries didn't start until March of 39. Final delivery was not until April of 41, so just before Pearl Harbor. Navy's still taking delivery of biplane dive bombers. The SBC-3 served on the Enterprise, the Saratoga, and the Yorktown. Later on, the SBC-4, in its final carrier usage, was on the Hornet. It was being used by VB-8, and also VT-8 flew a few of these as well, too. And they were flying them, until March 42, when the carrier was being sent over to the Pacific, thanks to World War II starting. The last unit to operate the SBC was a Marine Corps squadron that was based in American Samoa as defense for the island down in the South Pacific. And they flew these until December of 42 before they were finally replaced. They did not see any action with the U.S. or, as far as I can tell, with anybody else as well. The French ordered 90 of these in desperation when the World War II had started. Only about 50 of them were actually delivered. They were supposed to go on to a carrier as part of the deal with the kind of cash and carry that was in effect at that point. The aircraft were flown to the border with Canada, and then they were towed across the Canadian border and then loaded onto the French carrier. Not all of them would fit onto the carrier that they received, so 5 of them ended up going to the British in August of 1940, and they dubbed it the Cleveland Mark I, sent over to England on the HMS Furious, and they tested it and determined that it was not fit for duty with them, and did not receive any more of those. So that's a little bit of a history on the SBC Helldiver, and let's take a look at the kit itself. So this is the first issue of the kit. So it's got the old Aurora logo, the square logo with the Aurora Borealis, in the background. You got the 98-cent price, prominently on the front, highlighting all plastic kit, and then they got the quarter scale over here, which, as we know, is incorrect. Really dynamic box art. Was not able to source who the artist was. I do not believe this is Cthulhu. It doesn't have his signature on it, but pretty good looking box art, bright colors. And the box art does wrap around the whole box, which is kind of nice. And so on this side here, we've got listing of the other Aurora kits available at the time. And this logo here with all the different insignia was used on the first few years of Aurora kits. On this side here, just the box art wrapping around, and that little box here with the insignia again. On the end, we've got the kit name, kit number 11798. So again, emphasizing the 98 cent for the kit price, and even underlined, in the old Aurora logo again. And this is part of the famous fighter series. which is also on the front here. I forgot to mention the Famous Fighters of All Nation, which was trademarked. This end, we've got the same thing, and we've got an old price sticker here for 98 cents from Capital Cycle in Hyattsville, Maryland, I think that is. Yeah, so it's kind of neat. Nothing on the bottom. You can see the residue from tape. These boxes were usually just taped shut before they were cellophane wrapped. Here you can see the lithograph gets wrapped around and glued onto the box. You can even see a little bit of rippling on here. This one wasn't glued down very well. And you can see also it's still got the original tissue to help keep the parts from floating around inside here. And here we have our instruction sheet. Backside's got a representation of the kits that were available from Aurora at the time, including a few ships, a couple of their larger bombers, and of course their Famous Fighter series. On this side here, got basically an exploded view of the kit. Another old style Aurora logo on the bottom. Notice it's got the square stand from the early issue kits. And it does have a lot of movable control surfaces. Tail, both rudder and elevator. You've got the ailerons. Both top and bottom are movable. Landing gear I do not believe is retractable. But quite a bit of moving stuff. And quite a bit of stuff in the cockpit too, it looks like. So you've got your step-by-step instructions here, some brief stuff on how to assemble a kit, and history, and of course their ad for using their own glue. So there's your instructions. And then we have their decals, and first thing to point out is that these were not made by Aurora at the time. This was made by a company called Tatum. This would change later on. And these decals are not in the best shape. They've curled up and yellowed substantially. But you can still make them out pretty good. So they're showing this as being 3S1, which is VS3, and the number 1 aircraft is the Squadron Commander's aircraft. And SBC-3. This bureau number 9325 is not accurate, and it was issued to another aircraft later in the war, which is not an SBC. And this the Squadron Commander's aircraft was actually 0571. There's a lot of photograph evidence on this aircraft that I believe they sourced it off of. And the other interesting thing is that on the box art and also here on these decals, they're giving you this squadron insignia here, which is actually the squadron insignia for VS2. So this one, which was on the Lexington, and VS2 did fly Helldivers as well. But the squadron insignia for VS3 was a pointing dog. And you'll see that on the photographs of the squadron aircraft that we'll be showing you here in a moment. So, yeah, kind of typical of Aurora markings of this time. Kind of accurate, kind of not. But nice, this will build up into a nice colorful aircraft with the yellow wings and whatnot. So the actual aircraft itself, as mentioned before, was a squadron leader's aircraft and was assigned to VS3, which is the scout squadron on the Saratoga. They were on the Saratoga from 38 to 40. And 0571 was involved in an accident in 1941 after it came off the Saratoga at San Diego. There was a ground accident. It's classified as a taxi accident causing ground loop. which caused substantial damage. Pilot was a gentleman by the name of Roscoe Nelson. Was not able to find any more information about Mr. Nelson. But they must have repaired it enough, because the aircraft ended up in Jacksonville at Naval Air Station Jacksonville as a ground instructional aircraft, and it was ultimately scrapped in May of 1943. So hung around for quite a while, but ultimately met the scrapper's torch. So I'll show you some of the images of not only the specific aircraft, but a couple of additional photographs of squadron aircraft, so you can see the markings that were used at the time. Okay, so let's take a look at what we got in the box. So here's the tissue that was used to kind of keep stuff from bouncing around too much inside. And as was typical with these kits of the time, a lot of the pieces are already off of a sprue. So let's find the fuselage here. So here we got our fuselage halves, and we've got molded on markings, which was typical of Aurora at this time. So you got your large Indian head logo, squadron insignia, you've even got the fuselage band, tail numbering. We've got some recessed panel lines, which is surprising, and some raised riveting. Fit's not the best. Got a little bit of flash, but kind of soft on the details. And interesting, though, we do have some interior detail, which you wouldn't expect to find this era of kit. So we've got some framing. Looks like maybe a throttle quadrant on the side there. Yeah, a little bit of stuff on this one, too. So an attempt at getting some interior detail. Here we've got our wing pieces for the top wing. Got some rivet detail going on here. And you can see the space here for the movable ailerons. Here's our first sprue. We've got propeller, which is, yeah, again, soft on detail. There's our wheels. You have a pair of pilot seats here. Little bits and pieces, tail hook, some interplane struts maybe, tail wheel, pilot arm. The sprue's got the engine, which is fairly nicely detailed. Our interplane struts, we got some sinkholes on there, and then some of the, I think these are the rudder pedals. There's our interplane struts. There's our bomb choice, looks like 2 wing bombs maybe, and the external fuel tank, drop tank. Here's our cowling. Some representation of cowl flaps, but very thick on the sides. So if you're going to build this one, you probably want to sand that down a bit. And then this sprue has our lower wings. Representation of fabric covering being done on here with just some raised lines. There's a wing walk on there. Here's our vertical, or elevator I should say, and then we got molded on markings for the bottom wing. I don't think there was molded on markings on the top though. Yeah, so just on the bottom wing has the molded on star. And then this sprue has the ailerons and flaps, horizontal tail surfaces. I think this is part of the interior. There's this side, we got actuator tabs on there. And then here's the cockpit stuff, which is kind of nice. We've got a floor. It's got some detail on it. I don't know if that's very accurate for it, but we do have a pretty nice instrument panel. A little heavy-handed, a little soft on detail, but at least you got something. And here's for the back guy. Looks like the radio that would go in the rear section. And here's our rudder. Fortunately, it's got a nice ejector pin mark there. And then molded on SBC-3. Here's our canopy. Not the clearest in the world. Fairly thick. Pretty heavy framing. But it does have the step-down look of the sliding pieces. There's a hole there for this bomb sight. And then this is the old Aurora square style stand, or rectangular style stand. This was before they gave you a decal to go on here. So you have that. Kind of seems like a small stand for this pretty big, substantial aircraft. Then here's our crew. You get two crewmen. This guy's missing the arm that was on the tree. But, yeah, really nicely done. You can kind of see by how big these guys are, how this is much larger than 48 scale. But really nicely done crew. Aurora definitely was not known for its crewmen. Yeah, quite a number of their kits just had a head sticking out of it. So you have it. This is actually quite a nice little kit. So it's really the only Helldiver kit you could get close to 48 scale for quite a long time, up until the 90s. There's a couple other Helldivers that were made in 72nd scale. Heller had one, and Matchbox had one. And they, weren't necessarily the most accurate, greatest kits in the world themselves, but this is kind of a pretty neat little kit. I do have a second version of this. This is the later issue in 61, where you can kind of see the changes that have happened. You've got the change in the logo. Went to the later logo here. This is the 61 issue of the box. So this is the 60s version of the Aurora logo. They eliminated the famous fighters. This doesn't even have the famous fighters around the ring either. The art is still the same, slightly washed out. The 98 cents is missing. And the box art still wraps around. And here you've got the large SBC Helldiver as opposed to the kit list. The ends, repeated the box art, changed it to this logo, and the kit price went up and by having this little sticker added on top of it, which says $1.30. So it had gone up a bit. This side here, you can see the 61 date on it. And this end similar here. A few additional changes that occurred inside the kit itself. The instruction sheet changed, reflecting the new logo. the new stand was shown on here. New ad showing that you can get tube or liquid cement. There's also an advertisement for their paint series. And the back side is very different. By this time, there was a lot more kits in the Aurora lineup, so they went to a list and then promoting a few specific ones. Their Whirlybird series had come out by now. Their tank series, so they're really promoting those guys. And this one also included some sort of an advertisement insert here for a science fiction book from Isaac Asimov. Yours for 10 cents. And then here's the decals from the later issue. They've added the one to go onto the stand. And these are now produced by Aurora itself. Everything else is pretty much the same. Other than the stand here, I'll show you this. What most people think of as Aurora stand. Get it out of here. Come on. Yeah. There we go. So this is your more typical Aurora stand that people think of. That's where you put the logo for the individual aircraft. So that's the difference on these two versions of the kit. So they also had done an issue in 56, which did use the oval logo, but had the famous fighters in the logo itself, instead of separated here, but still retained the 98 cent. 57, they dropped the 98 cent off of the top of the box. And then in 61 is what you see with this one here. And then that was it. This kit disappeared. So, don't know if the mold still exists. I hope it does. And maybe, this is something that would get repopped by somebody like Atlantis or something. But, pretty nice and pretty advanced kit for, 1955. So, anyway, if you've built one of these, tell us about it for sure. And if you got one sitting on your shelf, take a picture of this and send it in. We'd really like to see some built versions of this if you got them. And that is about it, I guess. Well, thanks for watching, and have yourself a great rest of your day.